Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about the film Aloha. In 2000, when Cameron Crowe made Almost Famous, he was kind of at the height of his powers. He had made an amazingly good, very Hollywood movie that was all about earnestness and finding themselves in a way that you didn't think Hollywood could really produce anymore. He seemed like that great writer-director that wore his heart on his sleeve and would write all night and call his friends and have long night phone calls about their emotions. And just like this guy of great stories who could tell tales and tell all the great things that he has done and really believe in something. And now we have the guy who's doing that, but he's a lot older and it sounds a lot creepier. It's almost like he's gotten older, creepier, and has a major cocaine addiction and is running around and not making as much sense as he used to. This film has so many plot points and is trying to say so much, it doesn't end up saying anything. I've talked about messy Hollywood movies before. This is the messiest Hollywood movie I've seen this year. This has so many different plot lines. It has so much going on. It feels like a director who's just slapping it all together, but also a director who has it all planned out and cares a lot, both at the same time, and not really differentiating between the two styles. It is such a quagmire mess of a movie. It's like you don't want to call it the worst, because I kind of feel bad for him. He's gone and become the cliche of one of his lead characters in his so-called Cameron Crowe type movies, where they used to be a great person, like Emma Stone says about Bradley Cooper. There used to be greatness in this guy, and it feels like somebody who used to be great in the 90s who's trying to achieve that past glory, but he's just made another shitty comeback album. He doesn't really know how to keep evolving. He just knows how to make a set thing that'll make everybody happy so he can stay being a big director. And I think Aloha gives more evidence of why he shouldn't be a big director. Bradley Cooper, who has come back to Hawaii to supervise a blessing of a pedestrian crossing for a new space launch project base in Hawaii, where he used to live nearly 14 years ago and hang out with his girlfriend Rachel McAdams. Now she's married and he's being escorted by Emma Stone, who plays a jet fighter pilot who's supposed to show him around and kind of reconnect with all these people while he's helping out a billionaire played by Bill Murray, who's going to launch something into space and make sure this pedestrian crossing blessing goes according to plan. Since Bradley Cooper knows everybody in Hawaii and can make deals, and he goes there to not only make these deals and make sure the satellite goes up, but to also reconnects with his ex while also trying to hook up with this new girl. Certain directors come to a point where they've said kind of all they need to say, and it's painfully obvious when you watch their preceding films over a certain amount of time, and you can tell they've just lost that spark they once had. It's almost like they peaked with a certain film and have never gotten anywhere close to that. And one example, and I heard it from an animator who worked with Tim Burton, was when he made Ed Wood. He always felt like Tim Burton could never make a movie better than that. And I agree. Ever since Ed Wood, he's not made a movie that's better than Ed Wood. That was like the pinnacle of him as a director. Certainly I like stuff after that, but the decline of what's been going on in his filmography since then kind of reminds me of what happened with Cameron Crowe in Almost Famous. It was always the movie he had in his back pocket. It was always his dream project. It almost felt like Crowe ran out of stuff to do after that. Nothing he's made since Almost Famous has been anywhere near what Almost Famous and pretty much everything he made before that was. It's kind of sad. It's like, I don't think he knew where to go after that. It's also weird he keeps trying to make Jerry Maguire. Elizabethtown and Aloha, it's this guy trying to find himself who used to be great. And that kind of sums up this part of Cameron Crowe's career. He's just in the like burned out shell of his former self kind of years. And I wouldn't mind him coming back. I still like Say Anything and Almost Famous. I'm not a huge Jerry Maguire or Singles person, but I think they're a lot better than the crap he's putting out now. He hasn't really found a way to make a Cameron Crowe movie. Say Anything isn't like Jerry Maguire or Singles, or none of them are like each other. But then Aloha and Elizabethtown feel like the same director, and that feels really boring. It's like he has a set way to write a Cameron Crowe movie, but then he gets all passionate about it and just fucks that all up, but still uses it as a template. Now, he's made films that weren't kind of Cameron Crowe movies like Vanilla Sky and We Bought a Zoo, and that probably represents a much better director than these movies. Elizabethtown and Aloha feel meandering. They don't seem to really have much of a point to them. It feels like they always have to be incredibly cut down. In this movie, the editing is so bizarre and all over the place. He doesn't ever have a wide shot, and if he does, the camera's moving around like crazy. He used to be able to do just a plain wide shot. There's a lot of cutting in scenes that should really be showing the two people together so you can feel feel that chemistry. It's like he refused to put the chemistry in it. Like he keeps cutting between Emma Stone and Bradley Cooper, just keeps cutting to close-ups and mediums and close-ups and mediums. And it's like, just use a wide shot. And the few times they do cut to wide shots, they are ugly as shit. In that scene, the famous scene between Renee Zellweger and Tom Cruise, where they say all those dumb quotable lines, they do cut between two close-ups and mediums and such. But there's a lot of scenes where they're together, and you get a sense of them together. And you really don't get very much of that with him and Rachel McAdams, with him and Emma Stone, with him and anybody. So it's just a really hard movie to get into. This is a movie that's supposed to be about character. It's supposed to be about people relating to one another. Every character seems to want to elevate Bradley Cooper, and that just becomes very irritating after a while. It feels like a shitty version of Descendants that has way too much to say. Doesn't Descendants just do what Aloha does a lot better? This one kind of gets into Hawaii, but then is like ignores it and then gets back to it and then saying another thing. I learned more about Hawaii from Descendants than this movie at all. A mess of trying to capture its Hawaiian setting. Like, why even call it Aloha? Why don't just call it like Jerk Goes to Hawaii? It really feels like somebody who's visiting Hawaii a lot and thinks they totally get it, and all the Hawaiians are like, oh fuck, Cameron Crowe's gone, thank God. When I was watching this film, it just felt like some lame white guy on vacation who comes back and is in your office and keeps telling you about his trip to Hawaii, and by Thursday you're like, oh my God, shut the fuck up. And it's interesting when I was thinking about Descendants, because he's not only chasing a past glory, he's chasing something a much better movie did right before. Didn't George Clooney find himself in that movie? Didn't it have a better grasp on someone who used to be great but then it checked out? And this movie tries to complicate it with too many things. You can't have two love interests. What? Like, why are you trying to do a love triangle? Love triangles don't really work. It's like a soap opera-y thing. It's like too much. There are a lot of ideas that I think actually are interesting, like the thing about space and satellites and the privatization of the military and how that has to do with Hawaii and Hawaiian rights. I actually think there's some ideas in this that could make a good movie. You could take the parts of this and make a good movie, but there's just too many of these things. It's like he got all these little tidbits and went, well, I'm just gonna take them all. And it's like he wasn't precise. It feels like he has written notes on his walls and things kind of movies. Bradley Cooper, who I think recently has been actually really interesting and has become a chameleon, is at his absolute worst in this movie. He is at his most irritating. He should not be doing a lame movie star role at this point. In a way, like, he felt like the anti-leading man. The guy in American Hustle and the guy in American Sniper are so radically different, and then you see this guy and you're like, oh, you're doing Hangover shit again, dude? It feels like a much shittier, more relaxed Bradley Cooper. And the thing I liked about him, regardless if you like American Sniper or not, he really changed himself. He showed more of his as a chameleon as an actor, and he showed a real commitment to a role. And this feels like the guy from The Hangover that annoyed everybody before, less of the well-toned actor that he has become. It just really felt like a regression. Emma Stone is probably the one who tries the hardest, and it says a lot about her as a young actress and a young ingenue, that she can kind of act her way out of this almost, but there's so many creepy things about this, that she's like a manic pixie dream girl, and then Bradley Cooper has sex with her and she's like, okay, I'm fine. It's really disappointing. She's just really there to justify all the worst kind of gender roles you could possibly think of. And then Rachel McAdams feels like somebody who needs a comeback, but hey, True Detective season 2 comes out soon. And John Krasinski, his silent army guy thing was a little entertaining towards the end, where they have subtitles under it, and in the beginning, the first scene with it where he explains it to Rachel McAdams, that's not funny. He gets a great cast, and I don't know how he still does it. Like, he even got Bill Murray, who I like Bill Murray. It was kind of a different Bill Murray. Felt like he was trying a lot more than something like fucking St. Vincent. Was that the same kid from St. Vincent? I don't care enough to look it up. It's just a messy, scribbly notebook of a movie, but in a way that does not work. This movie is a crazy person. It makes no point. It makes no sense. It wants to say all these big issues. Aloha is not saying anything. It's just showing you a director who's run out of ideas, who's run out of that spark to come up with new things. All of his first 4 films weren't alike. And you can say Anything and Jerry Maguire have similarities, but they're not really the same movie. Elizabethtown and Aloha feel like very much like the same kind of movie, using a different locale each time and trying to show a guy who's trying to make his way back and rediscovering himself. Cameron Crowe needs to actually do what his characters do and rediscover himself and do not these movies anymore. It's sad he can't make a Cameron Crowe movie anymore, but it's like, I honestly don't want him to make a Cameron Crowe movie anymore. He needs to make a different kind of Cameron Crowe movie. He needs to evolve his style. Give us the arc with Bradley Cooper's character. We used to get the arc. Like with Jerry Maguire, we understand the fall and we understand what he has to come back from. With Bradley Cooper, we don't really understand the fall till halfway through, and so we don't really get to grow with him. There's so many things wrong with this. You could do a thesis paper on how much this movie fucked up. It is a gigantic mess of a misjudgment, of a mess, of a wreck of a movie. So if you have seen Aloha and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to. Yep.